We want to know, we know you're durable. You've survived 28 or 23 years in this huge role, grown the role, been a role model to all the health systems in the world. You've made leaders beyond our industry feel timid because you have taken on these really big issues. So you've been amazing, and we're so grateful for that. We're thrilled, as John said, that you were able to be the skunk works to get this off the ground. And you did, and Northwell's a key member of what we're doing. But these folks here are all senior leaders, but they have a long runway ahead of them, and they want to be the best leaders they can be. What are the lessons that you want to impart to them so they can be successful leaders? What are the 2 or 3 things that you think about all the time and come back to, Michael?
Just a couple of things. One is I think it is important on an ongoing basis to ask yourself a very important question. And it is, what motivates you? And this is important because your answer to the question determines what you end up pursuing or wanting to do. So you ask yourself the question, are you motivated by status, by title, by reputation, by where you sit on the pecking order in your business? Or are you motivated by your commitment to make a positive difference? It changes the way you think about something. So we're very, very fortunate to be in the business that we're in, because each day, each of us get up with the opportunity to make a sustainable difference in the lives of other people each and every day. There is no other business that can say that like the business that we're in. And I talk about this to all new employees because, as some of you know, I meet every new employee that is hired at Northwell. And we hire between 250 and 300 people a week. Yesterday, we hired 200 people yesterday. Friday, we're hiring another 75. So I will meet them all. And I've been doing it every week for 22 years. And I remind them of the following, because it applies to people at the ground level as well as to people like this on the top levels, is I say to them, as you're sitting here right now, there are thousands of people coming into our facilities with suffering from some issue or another, concerned, worried, scared, not exactly sure who they're going to meet, not exactly sure what we're going to do to them, not exactly sure how long they're going to be there, not sure if they're going home that night or not. But because of what we do, most will go home at the end of the day better off than when they came in at the beginning. And a vast majority of the others will go home the next couple of days better off. Who else, and what other profession has the opportunity to make a difference like this? So you have to pose yourself that question all the time, because I am absolutely convinced, to your question, John, we don't have jobs in these roles. We have obligations and responsibilities, and the obligation and responsibility has to be human-focused, has to be about making a positive difference, and it has to be making sure that at the end of the day, people are better off because of what we're involved in, because we're here. Remember, life is very short. We're here for a very short period of time. The journey is brief. Question is, when you get towards the end of your journey, what do you want people to say you did? That question we got to ask ourselves all the time. Because if you answer it the right way, you will do certain things. If you answer it the wrong way, you will do other things. If you're interested about moving up the ladder in your organization only for the purpose of your own status, your focus will be one thing. If you're interested in moving up because you want to make a positive difference in the lives of others, your focus and your answer will be different. And it's not only, one last thing I'd mention, it's not only what you do inside your organization, but it's what you do outside. I am absolutely convinced that health is affected by everything. We're involved in the medical care delivery side of the business, mostly, but we're affected by everything. A good education, a good job, climate change, gun violence, et cetera, et cetera. So your job is to make a difference inside, but your job is to influence outside, because what we influence outside will affect what goes on inside. So we have to be taking on much more of a public role, despite the fact that some people will criticize this, take on a public role to influence societal issues that negatively affect health. Because by doing so, you're making a positive difference in the lives of others.
Michael, you've obviously had this focus your whole life, reading your biography and knowing what you've done. You were committed to the state of New York when you were in the governor's office and had a very broad job there and some really thorny issues. How does this one that you've done the last 22 years compare with the previous in your life, previous leadership roles?
Well, this one, I mean, when I was in the governor's office, I had responsibility for this. I was the head of health and human services for the state of New York. So I had all health and human services, mental health, substance abuse, alcoholism, aging, education, the whole thing. And I was there during the beginning of the AIDS crisis, and I was there during the beginning of the crack epidemic. I remember those meetings. I remember the first meeting on crack very vividly. It occurred in my office when nobody knew what crack was. So that was a very, very broad portfolio, and it was a phenomenal education because you get a PhD a week in a role like that. You learn. And you learn, for example, about the underbelly of society. You learn because when you're in government, and this is something that most of us, people who've been in the so-called not-for-profit private sector, has never been in government, you see a sliver of the business, but when you're in government, you see the totality of it. Because when you're in government in those roles, you end up dealing with the things that other parts of society fail to respond to. You end up with the issues that families can't deal with, not-for-profits can't deal with, the private sector can't deal with, and they land on your lap. And you're supposed to fix them perfectly, because if you don't, you get criticized by the public all the time. The role I'm in today allows me to be able to continue that broad perspective, which is why I mentioned about the outside versus the inside. But you're able to focus more on attacking some issues, in a very, very detailed way that you don't get to do when you're just overseeing everything. Like, for example, the area that was a real problem for us when I was in government was mental health. Yet it pales in comparison to the acceleration of mental health issues that we're all suffering with today. And it's always, mental health, for example, has always been on the outside, it's kind of on the side, and it's been stigmatized. Now we, in our current roles, have an opportunity to, like in that particular one, integrate mental health with physical health so we don't make it a separate single entity. That we don't create, for example, single mental health institutions. I would rather to see like a children's hospital that deals with physical health and mental health rather than having a separate mental health facility. We have the opportunity to make those fundamental changes in the roles that we have today and not rely on government. Like, my view is that we have a great opportunity to fix problems ourselves rather than hoping that somebody else is going to do it for us. And we relegate it to others, like relegate it to government, they will take care of it. They never will. So I think our responsibility is much broader than sometimes we think. And it requires a kind of a commitment to go outside the comfort zone, to make yourself uncomfortable all the time, and to be very comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Michael, you have an inspiring gift of optimism, and yet you've seen the underbelly, you're reminded of it on a daily basis. For those of us who wish we had your energy and optimism, what can we do to bring that contagious message to people through hope and optimism that you exude every time, even if you're talking about violence against women, gun violence, alcoholism, homelessness, whatever? How can we be more like that?
Well, I think, again, it goes back to that first question I raised. One is I'm a strong believer in positive attitude. Everything is possible. Nothing is insurmountable. We have to exude that sense of self-confidence. Who wants to follow a pessimist? If you're running any part of your organization and you're walking around with your head down thinking, oh, by the way, this sucks and life sucks, who the hell is going to follow you? I mean, you got to be upbeat, you got to be enthusiastic, even though there's part of you that may think, boy, this is a very difficult problem. You got to be communicating the fact that it is doable, we will fix it, just like during COVID. I mean, I was on TV a lot during COVID because we were at the epicenter of COVID. And in every TV interview I did, which was 3 or 4 times a day, I always said, we will win against COVID. COVID is not going to win. We are not putting up the white flag. We are attacking it straight on, and we're going to beat it. Who, if you think of all your employees, they listen to you, and they watch what you do. They may not listen to everything you say, but they see everything you do. Yeah. So what do you want them to see? You want to be the captain of a team. Like I played a lot of competitive sports in the old days, back in Ireland. You want to be captain of the team. I remind people that games are won in the locker room. In the locker room. You go onto the field believing you're going to lose. What do you expect all your supporters and your followers to believe? That they can't win? So it's constant communication. And I think you have to communicate that on a continuous basis. One other thing, I am a constant believer that people don't want to work for something, they want to belong to something. Mm-hmm. People want to belong to a cause. They want to belong to the idea that you're doing something good for humanity. People fundamentally believe that that's a good thing to do. So all the employees in all of our organizations, in our case, we'll have over 100,000 employees by the end of the year. They want to belong to a cause. This, by the way, you mentioned gun violence at the beginning. When I took on the gun violence issue in a big way a couple of years ago, I took an awful lot of heat. But I can tell you, employees in our organization felt this is an important thing because we should not be in a society where guns are the leading cause of death for kids and adolescents. That's a good thing. And it's in our lane. They want to belong to people who believe in things like this. So you're not just a manager, you're not just managing a unit, you're leading a cause. And it's important to be continuing to communicate that message all the time. The people out there, the customer of our services, the community, have to be better off because of what we do. Otherwise, we shouldn't be doing what we're doing. Let it to somebody else. You can't be communicating inside or outside that there's a negativity to the way you think. Upbeat and positive.
Everyone in this room is going to take these fabulous learnings home. They're going to realize that people are looking at them in their units and everywhere they go for that sign of confidence, not looking at their phones, interacting in the elevators. All that stuff's really important. And that deep-seated belief in belonging, we should bottle this. I mean, this is really valuable. Let's give them one more. Mm-hmm. Life happens. You have a mistake. You make a mistake. Probably more often, someone who is working with you makes a mistake. And you're their supervisor, so you have to own it and move on. Everyone here has that happen occasionally. Can you tell us something like that happened to you? And what did you do? What would you do differently? Give them one more thing to take home.
Well, first of all, I don't think there's such a thing as a mistake. There's a learning experience.
Okay. Correction noted.
If you don't make a mistake, you don't succeed. Okay. Churchill had a wonderful phrase. He said, success is going from failure to failure without a loss of enthusiasm. And remember, you don't fail when you lose. You fail when you quit. Right? So every mistake is a learning experience. And that's an important positive communication. You have to allow staff to make mistakes, otherwise they won't innovate. How do you create an innovative culture? You give freedom to make mistakes. You allow people to screw up ever so often. If they screw up maliciously, that's a different story, but most people don't. People make honest mistakes. That's how you learn, etc. So one situation that occurred to me, and David is familiar with this because he's been in this world. I wanted to start an insurance company because I wanted to control the revenue side of the picture as well as on the provider side, as I think is still the goal of most people who'll be thinking holistically about this, like Kaiser. And I'm like what David had at Geisinger for a period of time. So I started an insurance company. I did start it. It was quite successful. It grew very, very fast, but we got caught in a risk-adjusted methodology as part of Obamacare. I had to shut it down. A disappointment, not a mistake.
Okay.
So today, I've created another company that is going directly to employers to contract directly with employers to bypass the insurance company. And I now have contracts with Bank of America, with Amazon, with the state of New York, with the city of New York, with the police department, with the State Department in Washington, et cetera, et cetera. So find another avenue, and eventually I'll be back into the insurance business over time. So you don't quit, you keep going forward. But did we learn from it? Yes. We created a much more capability as a result of that so-called disappointment or mistake. We created an awful lot of talent that allows us to figure out how to do care management better than we ever did before. So the learnings from it was extraordinary, although the big issue didn't work. The fundamentals that we created as a result of the attempt worked perfectly. There's one other thing that I'd just like to mention that is very important. We spend an awful lot of time on the hard issues like the business plans, the capital budgets, the infrastructure, Wall Street rating agencies, etc. All important. But you know what's more important when you want to create that sense of belonging? The soft issues. And especially important in the world of technology now as we move into the new world of technology, and there is power associated with that. But don't ever underestimate the power of relationships, the power of decency and respect, the power of kindness, the power of eye contact, the power of being together, the power of unity and community, the idea of interdependence. Those things are the sustainable issues long term. So the trick for us as we go forward is to optimize technology to the maximum, while at the same time we optimize the human element. If you go too far one way or the other, you're going to lose something special. That's how you create a sense of belonging. That's how you get people to feel good about coming to employment. And by the way, we work for our organizations 24/7. What we do outside when we're away from the office is as important as what we do inside when we're in the office, because we represent the cause that we're in. We don't have a job, we have a cause. At the end of the day, people in our communities have to think about health differently, because I think we have to have a much broader definition of health. For example, this time next year, we will, fall of 25, Northwell will be opening the Northwell High School of Health Sciences. We're working about our own high school to teach kids in high school about nursing, radiation medicine, physical therapy, and mental health. Because if you take a kid from a community with less advantage than we have been gifted with, and we connect them more to the world of work, and we provide them with the opportunity and see what's possible in the future, we're improving that kid's health, and we're improving the family's health, and we're improving the community's health. Because people ask me, what the hell are you doing a high school for? Well, because I'm in the health business. That's what I'm doing the high school for. And I think it will have as much influence in the long run. It's also, by the way, if you want to be self-serving about it, it creates the future workforce for us. Because this year we're touching 100,000 kids. Everybody talks about a workforce shortage in the future. Remember, there is no workforce shortage in the future if we do something today. We're touching thousands of kids. What are you going to do with those kids you touch to get the workforce of the future so that they can actually have the skills to deal with the digital world that we're moving into, as an example, over the next decade and beyond?
Michael, we're out of time. I hate that we're out of time. This is a great locker room.
By the way, the other thing is, by the way, John, and John and I have known it out a long time, but we've all learned from you as your CEO at Mayo Clinic. Remember, we all learn from one another. And you're always a student, and you're always a teacher.
This is brilliant. Thank you, Michael. That's really good.